Scientific inquiry is the examination and analysis of observable phenomena. It has been stated by scientists the world over that the scientific method is only one method of examination, and although it is the best known approach currently, its dynamics are ill-equipped to deal with constructs that cannot be observed, such as the supernatural. This is not to say that the paranormal does not exist because science has yet to prove it. Instead, it means that the supernatural world may indeed exist, despite the implications of humans' best-known method of inquiry, science. I like to think of myself as a scientist at heart, particular to the concepts of the social sciences. Even so, I am also a firm believer in ghosts and the happenings of paranormal events. As a child, the idea of an afterlife and what it may consist of fascinated me. As I got older, I grew away from my childish wonders and studied more academic concepts. Attaining a relatively well-paying job as a psychiatry data technician, I found the pay and benefits substantial enough for satisfaction, but the performance of duty-related tasks, such as continual transcription, became monotonous after only a few months of employment. Single, I put some money aside for the procurement of equipment related to my passion, paranormal investigations. It's not something I'd ever gotten paid to do before. Some college buddies and I used to dabble in it on the weekends, ones where we weren't consumed with coursework, and I found it invigorating, like rattling the dust off my childhood, which made me feel alive. After a few months of saving for and buying equipment, and recruiting a couple of my friends, it wasn't long before we started researching for our first location to investigate. We knew it would have to be someplace relatively close by, as each of us had work the following Monday, and we knew that we needed to receive the appropriate permission first. I was hoping my investment would eventually pay off and allow me to swap my current, painfully boring profession for a more stimulating one. After much deliberation and a few phone calls, we were actually able to get a hold of the owner of an allegedly haunted property only a short 45-minute drive away. The site was a cliché, abandoned mental institution. I had explored a few abandoned homes before. Once I even investigated an operational funeral home after hours, but nothing close to the size of the property of which we were now hoping to examine. The interior of the institution was recorded to be well over 150,000 square feet in space. What deemed the location investigatable was the boundless reports of unexplainable noises and apparitions that were reported to echo and roam about its corridors. Incidents ranged from occasional shadow figures always being seen with gleaming green eyes, to reported scratching and screaming noises, said to belong to the patients that used to reside within. The great thing about this place is that reports of supernatural phenomenon exceeded the period of abandonment and reached back to the time of operation. Many doctors and nurses employed at the institution reported seeing shadowy masses, usually first mistaken for a loose mental patient, and scratching within the walls. No reports of patients seeing or hearing anything unusual were ever logged, presumably because the mentally ill are prone to seeing and reporting such events, which are usually constructs of a diseased mind. With a little research and determination, I was able to get in touch with a real estate broker employed by the agency whom currently owned the property. Representative of his organization, the man agreed to meet us in the morning of the investigation and also agreed to allow us to remain overnight, unchaperoned, assuming I was legit. Enthused, I contacted my cobbled team of companions and prepared myself for one hell of a weekend. We left early, meeting up at Kevin's house and hitting the open road as the sun was just beginning to rise. Sure enough, the man who had agreed to meet me was there, standing upon the steps in front, awaiting our arrival, just as he had promised. Kevin, Chuck, and Carla began unpacking the van we had arrived in, while I walked up to greet the man. I instantly recognized the vacancy of this place, as ours and his vehicle were the only ones to be seen in the gravel lot, marking the end of the long, bumpy driveway. Walking past his black caravan, parked only a few feet from our white one, I lifted a hand hello and approached him. He extended his own when I got close, initiating a resulting handshake. As he walked me through the building, he told me to always be vigilant of my step and surroundings, and divulged a few stories related to noises and shadow creatures, in accordance with the location in which they occurred, helping me to mark out the spots to be investigated closely later. We walked most of the first and second floors, having to take the stairs as a result of the elevators not working, easily signified by both the lack of power and blatant abuse by vandals over the decades that the place sat forgotten by everyone, except local teenagers trying to score a good place for a beer party. Evidence of their presence was everywhere. Empty beer cans and cigarette butts littered the floor, amongst debris from crumbling plaster and fallen, deteriorated acoustical ceiling tile. Before long, we had made our way back into the lobby area, the crew all setting up various laptops, cameras, and other electrical equipment that would serve as our investigative tools. Once we were set and the broker left us to do our thing, we spent the rest of the morning and afternoon exploring and mapping ideal locations for EVP recordings and camera equipment. Combined with these tools, one thermal camera, and an EMF device for each of us, we were primed and set for recording and documenting before the onset of darkness. We spent hours that evening combing the grounds in groups and separately. No scratching, screaming, or anything worth noting, paranormally speaking. It was about 1:17 a.m. when the stationary camera number 3, positioned at the end of the second floor's western corridor, began blipping with static before the monitor went completely black. Alone in the lobby, now our base of operations, I radioed the rest of the team, now exploring the east wing of the first floor, about the malfunction that I was heading over to take a look and possibly fix the issue. They affirmed receipt of my transmission and off I went. The stairs creaked beneath my feet, each plank groaning with age. Once at the top of the steps, using my flashlight, I made my way to the left and down the western corridor. Doors on each side, leading to rooms previously occupied by previous residents, all open, most of which torn from a hinge, hanging in some odd fashion. The building looked as old and decrepit as one would expect a haunted structure to look, predictable in its appearance. Despite as creepy a feel the place had, nothing frightening or physics-defying occurred on my way to the stationary camera at the end of the long hall. Not so much as a sound, except for that of my own. Nothing, as I approached and heard a loud bang to my left. I turned around to see a man in a dirty brown coat run out from an open door behind me and take off down the hall, towards the stairs. "Hey!" I yelled, ignoring the thud noise behind me, assumedly that of the camera being tipped and knocked to the floor, and I began running after him. He proved much faster than I, and was out the front door before I was even able to make it to the top of the stairs. The building was supposed to be empty. This guy was likely trying to mess with our equipment, providing us with what we would think of as possibly supernatural instances that were nothing more than a prank, designed for an unknown end. I tried radioing the team, but my walkie wasn't working for some odd reason. I figured maybe the guy had placed a jammer somewhere in the building. After checking the whereabouts of my team on the monitors in the lobby, I headed towards their direction in the eastern wing on the ground floor. I was only about halfway to where they were depicted in the monitor when I realized they must have heard the commotion, because I saw all three of them coming forth from the darkness and running in my direction. As I jogged up to them, I tried to explain what had happened and that we should call someone, but they just ran past me, ignoring my words. They must have been really shaken up, and more so than I, because I couldn't help but notice the lights on the EMF devices that each were holding, blinking with activity from what I understand to be the first time in the whole time we had been there. They really didn't seem to care or notice. As they ran by and increased the distance between them and I began to jog after them and call out. That's when I noticed something odd. Their footsteps, their voices. Everything had an echo. Everything except now my voice. I could no longer hear the reverberation of my vocal cords being refracted off the empty floors and ceilings. As I approached the well-lit lobby, I saw each one of them check the black monitor linked to the camera upstairs before instantly rushing up the staircase and to the second floor. The monitor still black as I passed by. I followed them to the camera stationed at the end of the hall on the second floor's west wing. I traced their path, and my previous one, back to the point of which I had encountered the man. At first, as I approached them, I thought their flashlights were shined and focused upon the camera that had been knocked over. "Hey guys," I spoke once again, but no one responded. No one even looked at me. I peered around Kevin's left side to see a frightening sight that shook me to my very soul. It took me a while to grasp. I wouldn't believe it as I began shouting to my friends that I was right there, my attempts deemed futile by a further lack of response. Slowly, I began to wrestle with the concept my perception was shoving into my face, making it completely undeniable. Carla called the police, and they were there in about 30 minutes. Not long after, the building was flooded with searchlights, detectives, and yellow caution tape. Upon investigation of the surrounding rooms and the video footage we had captured, I overheard a policeman tell my three friends that the man in the brown coat, seen leaving the lobby from camera 5, is named Arnie Benjamin. He was currently wanted in relation to a string of home invasion cases and had been on the run from police for a few months. Search of the rooms, nearby the upstairs camera, revealed a room in which he had been squatting in, hoping to avoid detection. Apparently, he perceived our presence as a threat and was attempted to sneak away when I happened by him. Startled, the man shot me, resulting in the thump I had heard and the corpse that my friends had discovered. I saw it for myself. I lay up there, motionless on the floor, blood persistently leaking from the wound in the back of my broken skull, eyes red and bloodshot, skin an unnatural shade of gray. At the time, it seemed like that night lasted forever. Now, looking back, thinking about the endless days, weeks, and years that have passed since then, it looks like only moments for me. I cannot leave, and this place has forever become my eternal tomb. Science may not be able to prove its existence, but I know that the paranormal is real. I have become a part of it.